So good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Falzon. I represent NEAT Australia New Zealand as Regional Director, and I'd like to welcome you to this morning's Teams talk track on the topic of flexible workspaces with NEAT. And the idea of today's presentation is to rethink what the future of meeting rooms look like and how we're going to start accommodating for the ever-changing needs of the workforce now that we're actually seeing people going back to work. There's actually been a bit of a change of conversation from last year. I remember when I was at Integrate last year, we were talking about how do we get people to go back to the office. And I think for the most part, a lot of us are, but the way that we're utilising those office spaces is changing. And just from having conversations with some of my customers and seeing some of the workplaces, there's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of the approach. And also, unfortunately, some of them are not actually making any changes and wondering why people aren't coming back or wanting to use the facilities that they have available to them. So I think this opens the door for a very interesting conversation around what the future looks like and how technology can play a role in all of that. So I think the question that we ask ourselves now is, why do businesses need to adapt their offices to support flexible work? And funnily enough, I was in the taxi on the way here this morning and listening to a podcast of a young American girl who has quit her corporate job to start a business called, I think it was called The Lazy Worker. And it's targeted at millennials, trying to help them find work in places that give them a better work-life balance. I'm not going to go down that path, to be perfectly honest, but I think there is a conversation to be had around, well, how do we actually provide a workplace that is inviting and valuable to people in the way that they want to work today? And the reason why we should do that is not because we want to be nice, but because there's actually benefits for the business. So there's benefits around flexibility and productivity, and there's also benefits around, addressing, typical business goals around reducing costs, productivity, retaining the best staff in the business. And, everyone likes a bigger paycheck as they progress through their career, but they also are thinking more about, well, do I have time to spend, time with my family at the times of the day that are important to me? And I think a flexible approach to the workplace plays a role in that. But if we are going to go into the workplace, we want to make sure that it does provide what we want it to. There's nothing worse than spending an hour in traffic in the morning to go to a workplace that doesn't really provide any value. And I've certainly been exposed to that myself. I've worked for a company, a very big multinational company, and I remember going into the office every morning feeling, semi-defeated after being on a crammed bus, and going into the workplace and just seeing everyone sitting at the desk with headphones on, not really talking to each other or collaborating. And, by 10 o'clock, I was like, I'm going back home. This just doesn't make any sense for me to be in this place. And that's a really sad truth. So what we want to see is, how do we help provide higher productivity, adaptability? The way that we work one day doesn't necessarily mean we're going to work the same way later in the week or the next month. We have to make sure that the environment can adapt to the changes of the way that we work. And also, how do we provide cost savings and keep those employees? Now, my role at NEAT is, very much focused around meeting rooms technology, but I think we should certainly look beyond the meeting room. And I think one of the observations I've had over the years that I've been doing this is that when we fit out meeting rooms, we go for a design approach around, well, capacity, like how many people are going to fit in the room, and where the table's going to be positioned and where the camera and speakers and microphones need to go, and we set that in the design. But that doesn't necessarily provide a lot of flexibility, and it's also just assuming that we just want to talk to people and that's about it. I think the opportunity now through what has been happening in the Microsoft ecosystem, especially around Microsoft Teams and the capabilities of Teams as they've expanded, as they've started to introduce new capabilities, third-party applications and so forth, raises the question, well, why can't we do that in the meeting room as well? Right? Why should we just be limited to sitting in a room and being able to talk and see people, and that's it? So flexible workspaces, and if we think about, what are some of the things that we can do today to be flexible outside of a traditional meeting room, is, well, how do we make those spaces accessible and making them really easy to reserve? So some of those solutions are, well, pads outside of the room, pads that are synchronized with your corporate calendar, that clearly display the availability of the room, that allow you to have an ad hoc meeting or to walk in to begin your one little fun fact for you is all of the neat products that we have, including our scheduling displays, have sensors in them. Those sensors collect data about the environment, so we can check, temperature, humidity, air quality. And that's really good because if we're having an uncomfortable place to work, it's good to know about it. But more importantly, we've got sensors in our products so that when someone walks into the room for an ad hoc meeting, an unplanned meeting, those sensors will alert via the Teams cloud, your calendaring system, that someone's now in that room and automatically books it for you. So that way, the scheduling panel outside goes from green to bright red, and that way the whole organization now knows that someone's in that room and that room is being used. That's just automatic, so that's a really good way of starting to better utilize our resources, planning for the unplanned as well. We're also seeing a lot more demand for spaces where we want to collaborate. So having technology alongside the workstations that we see on the corporate floor or the office floor. And we've got examples of customers that have been doing that for a little while now. So they might have our Neat board very close to a bunch of workstations on the work floor. They might have a number of them. And that's a place where people can sit down on a small lounge and connect with their hybrid team and make that really easy, and not having to wander around looking for meeting spaces and rooms and jumping into the calendar and trying. It just makes it really fluid and instant. So we don't need to be, we don't need to be limited just by, is there a meeting room available to me? We can actually start collaborating and using some really smart technology very close to where our workstations are. We're also seeing Microsoft provide solutions outside of the meeting room for Teams, such as their new front desk. And that's been great for us at Neat because we have a solution that pairs perfectly well to that, which is our Neat frame. That Neat frame is an all-in-one solution with screen, and I'll show you a little bit more about that later on. But we're now seeing Microsoft Teams go beyond just the vanilla meeting room and giving us access to Teams capability in places and spaces right across the organization, including front desk and support. So think about it as an IT support kiosk, right? So many organizations don't have local IT. I've worked for companies like that, but imagine being able to go up to a little kiosk, start a call with the global IT support team for help. And also phone booths. We're now seeing that it's a lot easier to deploy and a lot more cost effective to deploy a freestanding booth on a work floor. And that also gives us a lot of scope to be able to make change without getting a construction company in. So as we want to reorganize the floor or the workplace, as the needs of the organization change, as we grow, as we shrink, as the way we collaborate changes, it's really easy to do that with booths. And again, our Neat frame fits perfectly into one of those little spaces. And that's been an opportunity to, get technology in the hands of people that want to collaborate a lot easier. There's nothing worse than walking past a meeting room that has 10 seats and there's one person in there having a call, right? That's just not a good use of resources. So booths are also becoming a growing trend that we are a big fan of at Neat. That's my clicker not working. So let me give you some examples of these flexible spaces that I'm talking about that Microsoft Teams and Neat together can enable very easily for you today using the software that Microsoft has, the cloud capabilities that Microsoft has, and the hardware that Neat delivers. So focus rooms, right? There tends to be a lot more meeting rooms, smaller meeting rooms in demand these days. Those open office scenarios, even social areas, kitchens, kitchenettes where, you know, you might want to have a town hall engagement. Rooms that are really centered around a video experience, an immersive experience. Bigger meeting spaces, and also workshops, training rooms, hot desking. One of the things with Neat is we have an intentionally small range of video products, but we've designed them in a way that they can be flexible enough to be deployed across many of these types of spaces. So that makes choice really easy. It means as your needs change, it's very easy to readapt those products into those changing spaces and their requirements, saving you money, time, and complexity. So let's talk a little bit more about these flexible devices. That's the whole range that you got right in front of you there. And you can see them in their natural habitat, right? They look fantastic. If you've got a modern workplace or you're looking to design a modern workplace centered around Teams collaboration or Microsoft Teams collaboration, we can extend that beyond the mobile and desktop into just about every place that you can meet with someone. And that looks damn nice too, doesn't it? So something that we have here at Integrate today, amongst all of our existing products, is one of our most new to the family, which is the Neat Board 50. And the Neat Board 50, I actually think one of its star capabilities is the way that you can mount it into a space. So you can put it on a desk, you can wall mount it, and you can also put it on the stand that you see in this graphic. But the cool feature of that stand is how it can be adjusted on the fly. So no tools needed. Anyone can go into a space or move this device into a space because it's got wheels on the bottom. So it actually becomes a mobile Teams device that you can roll into a room or roll into an open plan space. And it's small enough and big enough to work about, you know, in just every meeting space that you can think of, and very adaptable, and it's all in one. So everything is inside of this device, the cameras, the speakers, the sensors that I talked about that capture environmental conditions, depth sensors, obviously the screen, the compute, the I/O, everything that you need. And the idea is that you can get into a conversation using Teams, as well as do a whole lot of other great things from this one device. So when we talk about flexibility in the context of meeting rooms technology, this is just a bit of an example of where we're taking these sort of products, right? So earlier I talked about how we designed rooms and we have a very fixed design, where now we can have these products that can be moved around and adjusted to the changing needs of the meeting or the changing needs of the greater organization. And I think that is really cool. And we're also not limiting ourselves into silo devices. The way that we're designing our products now is that they can interact with each other. So you could actually have two of these devices in a room and they can start working together. So one can be for content, one can be for co-collaboration, and the other one can be doing all the heavy AV lifting for the Teams call. If that is what is needed of the meeting to get the job done on the day, then we can use this technology to do that really easily. Our Neat Frame is also one of our newer products. We released it last year. It's the smallest of our products, but it's just as capable as the rest of them. So what we've got here is almost like a miniature version of the Neat Board that is designed for the desk. So we designed this product during COVID to help people that wanted a dedicated Teams device to be on their desk. But since then, we've seen demand for it in other places and spaces, especially around the workplace. And with the help of Microsoft, we're seeing some really amazing use cases outside of just a meetings device. So Microsoft released their virtual front desk capability for Teams. So that means that someone could have a Neat Frame sitting as a virtual reception device or a virtual service device. I mentioned IT help desk before. You go up to that device, you hit a single button, really easy, and then you could be dialing into a hunt group or an individual or a call queue, and you're then getting assistance from someone to either let you in, give you access to an area, to help you with product support, whatever it might be. There's a number of use cases that would address really nicely. Like even retail, for example, imagine having a retail, someone to assist you remotely from picking the right outfit, from their range of products in store. We've also got hot desk mode, which is something that was also introduced to Teams. So imagine this device is now a shared resource, not only in a small meeting space, but also on a hot desk environment. So I could sit down at a desk, log into this device, and then it becomes my dedicated personal Teams companion to assist me so that I can use my laptop for my content, for my documents, for my apps, and then I've got my dedicated Teams device to do all the heavy lifting around the video, the voice, Teams chat, everything that you could do on the Teams client on your PC, but in a much more powerful way because you've got this dedicated device. And then also, of course, is Teams personal mode. And this was the original use case for this device, was that, if I'm going to be doing a lot of work and collaboration at my home setting, then it's nice to know that I've now got a dedicated Teams device so I can actually get my laptop back when I'm meeting with people. Because, it's very hard to juggle between doing the work and then engaging with someone when you've just got a laptop. And Teams, if you didn't know, have a companion mode, which means that your Teams desktop and your Neat frame running Teams are aware of each other. So that then allows you to control the Neat frame from your PC. And it also allows you to, move content from your Teams call that might be on your Neat frame to your PC. It actually brings it all together really nicely. Sadly, not everyone knows that actually exists, but it's an amazing collaboration between the two devices. And you can see how nice that looks. You've got a camera that is perfectly suited to, eye level. So it doesn't look like a laptop camera that's peeking up your nose. And you've got a very quick access to all of the Teams tools that help you collaborate really well. And when you've obviously finished using that device in a shared space, it then becomes a resource for someone else to use and to be productive. It also means you're not dependent on a PC. Yes, as I mentioned, it works very well with a PC, but it can stand on its own 2 feet really well. If you log into that device with either your personal credentials or via the hot desking mode, you get access to your calendar, you get access to your chat and your chat history, and all of the other Teams features like calling, starting meetings, starting video call, etc., and also apps. You could see how that could look like in a freestanding booth, right? It is very, very well designed to not take up too much space. Everything's built in and integrated into the product, even the power supply, so you don't need to hide a power brick. We've got Bluetooth for headset connectivity. We've got some advanced noise suppression capability, which I'll talk about, that eliminates ambient noise that might be in the environment. And it also stops the promotion of camping in these little small meeting spaces. The moment you put a keyboard, mouse, and a monitor in a small space like that, it becomes someone's personal office. So by having something that's designed like this, we remove that because it's not going to be your monitor. It's not designed to be a monitor. It's actually designed to give you Teams capabilities, not to become a workstation. And then from all the way from our smallest device, we go to the larger meeting spaces. So we've got a number of different products in between. But we can also accommodate for your more traditional and bigger boardrooms. But as I said before, with the way that our products are becoming aware of each other, I could wheel in a Neat board into this space and then use that to collaborate further or to bring up applications. And the two devices would become aware of each other and they can share across to each other, whether it be in a local meeting or in a live call, so that the technology just works seamlessly together and we're getting the outcomes that we're looking for. And we're also getting the job done in the meeting room. We're not just going in there to meet and then decide, let's regroup tomorrow and see what we did, we can actually start to get things done. So native team solutions is what we're all about here at Neat. So all of the products that we have are designed to connect to Microsoft Teams in a secure manner, which means they can all be remotely managed and remotely supported. And we can do that across 90% of the different meeting spaces that you've got out there, with a big emphasis on flexible, on how we can be flexible and how we can start collaborating and getting access to teams and spaces that we traditionally weren't able to, such as here and here. In fact, when we came out with the Neat frame and the virtual front desk feature became available from Microsoft, a French company developed a wall mount bracket for it and started promoting that online. We found that really interesting. So we can now start mounting this product in, various places and spaces that we didn't really imagine at the time when we built it, which is pretty cool. So the experiences are really important as well. So it's great that we've got a range of products that can connect to Teams and deliver a Teams experience, but there's some things that Neat does particularly well to help accommodate for these changing and challenging spaces that we've got. So the first thing is just to make it really simple to get there, to really start to realize the value in the quickest way possible is to make the setup of the product simple. And this applies both from a customer lens and also from our channels lens. If we can help you get that product up and running in the quickest way possible, your customer is going to realize the value and they're going to want more. And that's what we're seeing. So with all of our products, if you buy a Neat bar, for example, which is all the mounting hardware is in the box. You don't need to be concerned around, do I need this part or this option? It doesn't really matter because everything's in the box. And the product will guide you how to set itself up. You turn it on, you'll get an infographic, and then it'll guide you through step by step how to set that product up depending on the mounting option that you want to use. And it's not unusual to be up and running in less than half an hour. With some really smart AI technology and digital camera technology, we introduced Neat Symmetry about 1.5 years ago. And that was a total game changer to this industry because it allowed us to have equality in meetings, which is something that's really a big emphasis on Microsoft Teams at the moment, is how do we deliver equality into a meeting to be seen and to see the others as well. And there's nothing worse than actually seeing a meeting room full of people when you're on a call, but you can't really tell who's who because they're all tiny little dots on the screen. And that's exactly what Neat Symmetry was designed to solve, was to allow you to take each of those individuals in the room and bring them to life, bring them forward into the meeting so that you can see them clearly and engage with them. Because it can be very fatiguing to be looking at little dots on a screen for more than half an hour. This is something that we patented. We developed it. We were first to market with it. And it's one of our most valued capabilities. And when you actually set up a Teams room with something like this, people want to use it. They love it. And we're also going to extend that very soon through Neat Center. So Neat Center adds an additional 3 cameras into the room to help us with rooms with challenging table arrangements, with spaces where just one camera isn't going to cut it. And it's also going to extend the microphone capability of the room. So this is just a good example. So if you had a Teams meeting running on our Neat board, it would be fine if everyone was perfectly set up in a row in front of the device, but not all meeting spaces are like that, right? So a good example is a round table. And the problem with round table is that when you've got a fixed camera position, sometimes you'll get the back of that person or the back of their head or their shoulder. And that's not ideal, right? That's not going to provide a very inclusive meeting experience. So by adding a Neat Center to the middle of the table, it's about the size of a energy drink can, PoE powered. That's going to give you 3 additional cameras and will work together with the Neat board or the other Neat device that's in the room to portray each individual in that room in the best possible way. And the idea is that there's no user intervention. the intelligence of our devices will just figure out that by itself. And you can see some examples here where that could work really well. Places and spaces, more traditional ones, but also training rooms, and, uniquely designed spaces where that could be really, really useful. We've also got another patent out for a technology that helps solve a problem. I'm in a meeting room at the moment with windows on each side, and there's a corridor to the left here in this room. We've got the blinds down at the moment, but this is not uncommon. We see a lot of modern workplaces using glass walls. And the problem with that is when you've got cameras that track, they start to track things that you don't want them to track. They start tracking people walking through the corridor or people having a coffee at the kitchenette outside. But we were pretty forward thinking with this. So when we had our design team make our products, we were aware that that could be a possibility. We need to make products that will solve these problems as they occur, as the places and spaces change, or the design changes. So using the sensors that we've got in our product, we came out with something called Neat Boundary. A neat boundary allows you to set an invisible perimeter in that meeting space so that the cameras will not track outside of that perimeter. It's almost like a boundary, which is why we call it Neat Boundary. And that's so easy to set up. A user could set it up, an installer could set it up, really, really quite easy. Just go into the settings and you set the width and the depth, and the product will help guide you through that, and you'll be up and running. That's also really nice when we've got open spaces. So imagine had a neat board in an open space, like near workstations, like I mentioned before. You don't want it tracking the person sitting, 5 meters away as they're working at their desk. This works very well. We can demonstrate that to you here at Integrate today. And the same applies for audio. So we do some great stuff with video and the images that you see in the call, but we can also do the same for audio. So we can suppress HVAC noise. We can suppress any noise that is not of the human voice. My Neat frame that I've got at home does a really good job of cancelling out the noise of my next door neighbour's lawnmower when he decides to mow his lawn every week. So that provides a much better meeting experience for those on the call. We can also eliminate double talk, and we can also help with reverberation. So something that we recently came out with was a feature where the technology is aiming to solve physical problems. So problems with the physical space. We see a lot of meeting spaces that are not ideal, and the customer simply just doesn't have the budget to tear the place apart and put much better, acoustic in the room. That is an ideal scenario, of course, where we have, specially treated rooms, but that's not always the reality. So we've done some really good work at, signal processing where we can reduce the reverberation in that room. We've just started that with our Neat Bar Pro. That'll make its way to the rest of our products. So I encourage you to try that out if you're using a Neat Bar Pro. It does a particularly amazing job. And we've got some examples of that we've posted online as well if you check out our YouTube page or on LinkedIn. We're also flexible enough that if we can't join a meeting that with Teams, we can certainly just plug in our laptop and use our BYOD mode. So BYOD mode will give you the flexibility of connecting using a USB cable and a HDMI cable, and that'll allow you then to join from any meetings platform that you need to at that given time. Microsoft Teams does a really good job at cloud interop, so we can join WebEx meetings now, we can join Zoom meetings, as well as, of course, Teams meetings, just from Teams on our devices. But for anything else, you can just simply plug your laptop in and it'll work. And this also gives you the ability to control your laptop as well. So if you were to plug your laptop into a Neat board, I could control my laptop desktop from the Neat board interface, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, maximizing room utilization. So I gave you examples of this before where, we've got spaces where, you might just want to walk in and have an ad hoc meeting. You never planned it, you didn't reserve it, but how do we make sure that that's properly utilized and the rest of the business has visibility? Again, using some of the smarts in our technology to automatically book that room the moment you walk in, make it visible on the panel outside, and synchronize that with your calendaring system. And Teams does that for you. You assume that you're using Exchange, but if you're not using Exchange, using some other calendaring system, we can make that work as well. Now, we've got some really good resources for you today that are available through our Modern Office Guide with Neat and Microsoft. You get a bit of a peek for it on today's presentation, but I encourage you to scan that QR code, and that QR code will give you access to a really, really cool document, which will have plenty of visual ideas of spaces and places within the organization where you can now start to deliver that rich Teams experience. That rich Teams experience through the Neat devices that we have, a lot of that innovative technology that we just mentioned. And there's our product family. We've got all of these here today, with the exception of the Neat Center. That's coming out later this year. So the Neat Center is the little device hanging from the roof in like a pendant. But everything else is there, including the new Neat Board 50, which is our latest product. First one in the country here at Integrate in Sydney. So please come and have a look, become familiar with them, get us to help you with the demo. If you're a partner of Neat today, please make sure you check out our partner portal. We've got plenty of resources there for you. So things like deal registration, outreach content to help you do some business development. The guide that I mentioned, CAD drawings of all of our products, images, whatever you like, it's all there. There's some training material there as well. Also be aware that, if you have customers that like what they see from Neat, but they want to try the products, we have a really simple and effective evaluation program. That program allows the customer to try the product for 30 days. You send them a brand new one each time, because if they want to keep it, they can keep it and they can be billed through our partner. And that works really well. We have a very high success rate of that. And if you're not a partner, but you'd like to become one, you can certainly do so. If you go to that partner portal that I mentioned, there's a big purple button there at the bottom that says apply to become a Neat partner. Click on that, fill out the web form. There's not too much to fill out, thankfully. And within 48 hours, you'll get a notification that your application has been processed. And then you've got access to our partner portal and can start to get quotes through our distribution partners. So let me wrap up with a call to action. Hopefully you can see that where we can meet and utilize Teams in the workplace is growing, and that we can make it a lot more flexible through some really smart, neat devices. So ask yourself the question, does your workplace give your employees the flexibility and freedom that they need so that they actually want to come to the office and keep coming back? It's that sort of, reward mechanism that we want to promote. Are those spaces not being utilized due to lack of capability and productivity? And certainly please familiar yourself with that guide that I mentioned before. If you didn't get a chance to get the QR code, I'll put it back up just before we wrap this up. Have a look at that. It's great to become familiar with yourself, but it's also great to share with your customers. Come visit our stand at Integrate, ask for a demonstration, bookmark our website. If you just search for Neat on Google, you'll get all sorts of things. So visit www.neat.no, NO because we're a Norwegian company. Partners, register and check out our partner portal. Make sure you're using your company email address, and also speak to customers about their meeting room and workspace challenges. And also, we've got a small but very capable team of people here at Neat. We're willing to get involved and meet with the customer, with you, and help that conversation and add to that conversation. So feel free to loop us in. If you are in the IT or AV channel, are interested in partnering, again, go to partners.neat.no. So that's our partner website, and click that link, and certainly offer a demonstration and consider to use our Neat evaluation program. It's a really powerful resource to use, and it works very well. So I'll bring up that QR code, but with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. I hope that was useful. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach out. I'll monitor the chat and respond to any chat questions that you've got, if you have. Yes, Les, you've got a question.
The stand for the Neatboard 50, what's the idea behind that? The mobile stand, the material, is there any value in that? What's the value proposition?
Yes, there is some intentional design considerations that have gone into that stand. So one of the things that you'll find with that stand is that it's made of like a felt material. So that's an acoustic material. So it's designed to absorb any sound. So if we've got that product out in an open space, that's going to help absorb some of that sound that might travel into, behind the product where the workstations are. That stand is also adjustable. And the nice thing about having that adjustable stand is that it'll help manage some of those smaller meeting spaces, so that if you're really close to the device, you don't necessarily want to have the camera angle set so that it's looking down at the table, right? Almost like a bird's eye view. We don't want to do that. So just being able to simply pull the device down, you can optimize the height for that room. But we're also promoting you to get up and close to that device now. So because it's got an interactive display, there's going to be scope to use that device with applications as well. So not only can we use it for Teams, but we could also use it for some third-party applications as well. That could be launched on that device and then shared into a Teams meeting so that we can start collaborating and co-collaborating together on that call. So you may not want to stand up for half an hour working on an application with a colleague. It might make sense to actually lower it, sit down. So if you could imagine you've got one of those small open plan collaboration spaces with like a 3-seater lounge next to it, you could lower it, sit down, and actually start working on the app together as a group without fatiguing yourself. Thanks for the question. Let me just have a look and see what questions I've got on the chat. I can't see any. So with that, everyone, we'll wrap it up. But thanks very much and enjoy the rest of Integrate. Cheers.